Welcome back to the channel, everybody, to another Fortnite tips and tricks video. And this one is episode 2 of how to win every game of 0 builds. Now, this was a duos game, but the tips and tricks will still be valuable if you're playing solos, trios, or squads. So let's get right into it. So me and my teammate were going to land on the mountain over here, but then we noticed that there was other teams that were going to beat us to it. So we decided to go to this other mountain to the right of it, and it also looked like someone was going to land there, but they decided to go down to that little tiny unnamed POI, so I did end up landing on top of the mountain here. You may be able to hear in the background that I was communicating to my teammate that there was teams landing with us and that we should veer off to go to this other mountain instead. So that's the very first tip here, is you always want to make sure that you and your teammates are in communication with each other. My teammate also warned me that there was an enemy player trying to sneak up behind me. Now these next tips are going to be repeated as they were in the last video, but it's just so important. Always be paying attention to your surroundings, have good awareness of what's going on around you and where other players are, especially when you're landing. Also, always try to land on high ground whenever possible, because if you land on high ground, you're usually the first one to land, meaning you're the first one to get a weapon to defend yourself. Now you may notice I have footprint indicators and a magnet indicator showing up on my screen in case people don't know about this yet. If you go into your settings, you go to sound settings, if you turn on visual sound effects, it'll help you greatly to be able to know which direction players are coming from. Also, when playing team modes, remember you are on a team, so you should be staying close to each other and working together. You're going to have a much easier time if you're near your teammate while fighting, as you can watch each other's back and also team up on enemies and eliminate them more quickly. It's always best to clear the POI or landing spot before you fully loot up, because you want to finish your fights quickly, because the faster you finish the fights, the less likely someone else is going to hear the gunfire and come to third party you, and it will also give you more time to be able to find all the heals and shields and ammo and everything else you are going to need to win the game. Now you may hear in the background here that my teammate says that he's not a fan of the scope on the gun he's using. So he has an assault rifle and it has a sniper scope. So that brings us to our next tip, that you can't be picky off spawn when you land on what weapons you're going to use. Even if you don't like that weapon or you don't like the scope on it or whatever it may be, you're better off to pick it up until you can get the proper loadout that you like to use. And our next tip now is to talk with your teammate and let them know. So since my teammate said that, I ended up letting him know, hey, there's actually a sniper rifle right here, because I know he really likes sniper rifles. You should always be trying to share loot and items with your teammate, and also keeping an eye on your teammate and the things they might need in case they kind of don't notice. So you'll notice that my teammate needed some health, and I ended up finding some bandages. I also found flowberries, and I ended up popping them beside him so we could both get our shields up. Instead of being selfish and just using those items just for myself, I also found some fruit that he could use to get to full 100 green health. Plus, I found Flowberry Fizz, but we have not used it yet. Now, Flowberry Fizz is a very good healing item, as you can use it to heal you and your teammates if they're close enough to you, and it also gives you a mobility boost. So instead, we're searching the POI to try to get as healthy as possible and trying to save our good healing items for later on in the game. And that brings us to the next tip, is you and your teammates should also be discussing what each of you are carrying in your loadouts to some degree. You wouldn't want your teammate wasting a big pot to get up to 50 shields if you were carrying 6 minis, for example. It also wouldn't do you any good if both of you are carrying medkits and nobody is carrying shields. Now the same goes for utility and mobility items. Just knowing that your teammate and you both have grapple plates, for example, is excellent, because you know you can both rotate the same way very quickly. Now, if your teammate only has a couple shockwaves left, then it might be more beneficial for you guys to try to find a car or a motorbike or some other form of transportation. If you know your teammate is carrying an Anvil rocket launcher, you can make a call out such as, hey, they're behind this tree over here, and mark it and have them blow up the enemy's cover. You could ask them to EMP a bush to check to see if there is somebody in it. You could ask them to use a porta bunker because you need cover while you're trying to heal or reload your weapons. The possibilities are endless. And now on to our next tip, which involves learning the map, and learning where the NPCs are and what they do. So like this NPC here, for example, sells rifts. So that gave us more time to loot up at this location. We didn't really have to worry about the storm because we knew that we could just buy a rift to be able to rotate very quickly and avoid the storm. Also, if you let your teammate know you're going to buy a rift, if they're near you, you only have to buy one rift and you can both use it, saving one of you 250 gold. Now, once you leave your initial drop spot, you should be trying to decide where you should head to next. So this time we headed to Hazy Hillside, and it was yellow on the map. That means it is a hotspot, and it will have drones, which you can shoot down, and the drones usually will drop weapons as well as healing items. So it's a good way to stock up on supplies completely for free. Back to knowing the map, this location also has one of the underground weapon cache locations, which I went to check, but somebody had already looted it. At the time of recording this video, the Ninja Turtle vending machines were still in the game, and I was able to get permanent mobility out of it for myself for 300 gold. While I was checking that side of the POI, my teammate was checking the other side because there was a mini vault, which you could get into by killing a guard and using the key card. But unfortunately, he couldn't find the key, so we opted just to leave instead of being stuck in the storm looking for it. Sometimes it's better off to skip out on something instead of ending up putting yourself at a disadvantage later on because you've used up healing items and wasted too much time and got bad timing or bad rotation because of it, which would cost you the game. Now, I also noticed that I hit a bounty while I was there, although it got poached. Now, I always like to hit the bounties because this helps you to know where another enemy player may be, so you get into another fight, plus you get awarded 100 gold if you end up defeating them. Also, even if you aren't a great fighter and you're not looking for a fight, it can also let you kind of know where to avoid. At this point, I asked my teammate if he had found mobility yet, as I had the Ninja Turtles mythic, and he said he did not, and all he had was some Flowberry Fizz. So I said, hey, do you want to go down here, see this NPC, to buy a grapple blade? He said he didn't really like the grapple blades, so I offered to give him my Ninja Turtle mythic, but he said he was okay, because he could probably just find one from a supply drop. At this point, we realized that he did not come down here with me, and I let him know I was going to buy a rift, and he told me that I should just take it because he's already halfway in the storm anyways. I also mentioned how I was still looking for more porta bunkers, as I had only found two this game. So now you're also going to notice that when I took the rift, I was looking to see where my teammate might be. Now, I could have flown straight into zone with this rift and got way far ahead of him, but instead, I chose to land with my teammate because we are stronger together as a duo if we get into a fight than we are if we are separated. Next, I call out that there's a jump pad nearby that we could use in order to rotate into zone and beat the storm. So that's our next tip here, is always try to stay ahead of the storm because you're going to have a way better chance of winning the game if you're not having to run through the storm and constantly having to waste your healing items. A lot of veteran players will intentionally search storm looking for players who've been stuck in it trying to make it out because they know that they are weak and are easy eliminations. You already have enemy players to worry about. You don't need to have to be worrying about the storm and having to find more healing items as well. Now, at this point, we are near Frenching Fields, and we notice a bunch of players having a fight, and a lot of them are right out in the open. So we were deciding to take this fight and try to take a few shots, as those other players had no cover. But then we see a car pull up, and a bunch of other players and battalions were on the mini map. And since we already had crowds and we were trying to keep them, we decided, you know what, it's better off just to skip this fight and let them all fight each other. Then we also noticed that a Ninja Turtle loot drop was spawning on our way into zone, so we decided that we should stop and get this so my teammate would also have mobility as well as the island was spawning right in front of us. Now, originally we were going to head up to island and try to hold other players who were trying to come out of storm because it would be great high ground, but we noticed that other teams with medallions had beat us to it. So that brings me to my next tip here, and that is don't be so hard struck on what you are going to do in a game, because everything can change in a split second. You don't have to fight every single person you see. It's okay to also disengage from a fight if it means it's going to give you a higher chance at winning the game. It's always better to play smart and take less risks and choose fights so you have a higher chance of winning. Like this fight here. We chose to take this fight as these players had just finished having a fight, and we also had a lot of cover with these buildings so the people on the island wouldn't be able to hit us. And these players also did not have enough time to heal as we had perfect timing on this fight. The fight we skipped out earlier on fencing fields, we chose to skip it because there's too many other players around and there was a high chance that we would get third partied. Now this next tip should be pretty obvious. I've said it in plenty of other videos, but you always want to try to go for forecast tower whenever possible, because just knowing where the storm is going to be in the game gives you a huge advantage and will help you win more games. Being able to rotate early allows you to get the best positioning in order to help you win the game by taking over the high ground, and also allows you to keep more of your health and heals for endgame. Now at this point I go to rotate early, and then my teammate ended up opening a chest and found some porta bunkers, which I've been looking for the whole game. So I ended up heading back to get those porta bunkers, and I was thinking, oh, we gotta get going, we gotta stay ahead of storm. My teammate's like, hey, why don't we just stay up here for now? Because there's a jump pad which we could use to rotate. And that brings me to my next tip, is also listen to your teammates. And also discuss what you're going to do sometimes, because they can have some great ideas that you might have overlooked in the moment. This spot was absolutely perfect as it had the jump pad for a quick and easy rotate. The rock behind us provided cover from anybody who might have been trying to shoot us from island, and we had a clear view of everything that was going on in the zone. We were also really close to Studi Steps and Peter Griffin and his medallion, so we would be able to third party any fights if anybody decided to go for it. Now, at this point of the game, I was opening up my map a lot as I was trying to check to see where players with medallions were, so I could try to get an idea of which way they were going to be rotating. I was also looking at where Storm was going and marking where the next zone was going to be so that we could easily plan our next rotation. And that brings me to my next tip, and that is when you're playing team game modes, it's always good to have somebody have the role of leader or IGL, in-game leader. By having someone act as leader, this is going to cause the game just to run more smoothly, as everyone's not going to be bickering and just doing their own thing, and the team is going to stay together and move together, as well as this person is going to be deciding which way you should rotate, and just keep an eye on general things like where the storm is and how long you have to rotate to the next zone. The other members of your team could have other specific roles, such as fragger, or just a person who is more the attacker, or a scout, or just general support. I will have a video out in the future about why having roles and having an in-game leader is important, but for the moment right now, if you've got any value out of this video so far, be sure to drop a comment down below, or like and subscribe. Now on to our next tip here. Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing, and patience is a virtue. As you can see here, I ended up catching this player trying to rotate, and we took him out very easily from our position. After we finished that fight, we decided the best thing to do was now to rotate closer to the next zone, as all the other enemy players would have heard of that fight and would have known where we were. And I also noticed players with medallions were rotating near Pleasant Piazza, kind of towards where the next zone is, and I did not know if they had storm forecast or not. And we did not want them beating us to the next zone. And speaking of medallions, the reason me and my teammate did not go for medallions this game is because we did not want our location to be known, as we were trying to keep our crowns that we had won in the previous game. At this point, I'm asking my teammate if he can see the enemies, because I can, as I don't have a scope on my gun, or if he thinks we should just rotate to the next zone, and he ends up spotting them. Now, on top of this hill that we were on, there isn't a lot of cover, and this is the importance of trying to bring porta bunkers into endgame. Literally, you could just win a game because you have a porta bunker and no one else in zone has one, as it provides excellent cover and helps give you high ground over your opponent. At this point, I noticed an enemy is trying to sneak up behind us, so me and my teammate just tag team them and take them out very quickly. I also switched out my Thunderburst SMG for the Frenzy Auto Shotgun that they dropped, as the circle is getting smaller and we're definitely going to be getting into more close range fights from here on out. I also mentioned to my teammate that I'm going to try to destroy the trees that the enemies are hiding behind, so that he can be ready to try to snipe them. By using simple callouts like this, you'll be surprised at how much easier of a time you'll have defeating your enemies. I also noticed that me and my teammate are also calling out which skin that we've hit and how much damage that we've done to them. Now, any player that's hiding behind trees like this, is so easy just to destroy the trees in zero build, and they just scurry off afterwards, as they don't have any protection. If you're lucky, you can maybe even get a few tags on them while they're running away. Now, at this point, my teammate notices that the storm's catching up to us, which brings me to my next tip is do not be too tunnel visioned on a fight that you're having, and always make sure that you have awareness of what's going on around you. We then spot another player running out in the open, rotating with no mobility, and we catch another easy elimination by tag teaming him together. Now, it's endgame, and it's a 2v2 situation, and we come up to the very last team here, and now this guy makes a very grave mistake. He ends up trying to use the Ninja Turtle mythic and just flies straight towards me. Never use mobility like this and just go straight at an opponent, so I very easily take him out with the Enforcer AR, then drops mythic auto shotty, I pick it up and take out his teammate, and it's GG's. We kept our crowd without landing at a mythic vault and without even having to use a mod bench. It all came down to good teamwork, good strategy, good positioning, and having the proper loot in order to win the game. But that's it for this video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. I'm Big Papa Spur 487, and I'm out. Take care and have fun gaming. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.